Today we're going to be talking about some very common mistakes that you really want to avoid and how to fix them. We'll talk about how these mistakes aren't ideal for your progress and your technique and why you want to fix them. But first of all, we're going to get thumb positioning out of the way because there's really no wrong or right with this. So when we talk about perfect technique, we're usually told to have our thumb in the middle of the curve, the back of the neck. So when it goes here, we'll have our thumb placed around the middle and also vertical, so in line with the frets or perpendicular to the direction of the strings. So our thumb looks like that. So you can see it's going vertical. Now this is good. When we place our thumb behind the neck, it allows us support and control for when we're doing some fast technical playing, and also allows us to get a larger reach or stretch so we can access more notes and frets. But it isn't as expressive as the other side of the argument, which is doing this, kind of the Jimi Hendrix style of playing. This style of playing is good in ways as well. This is all for me, this is all my personal preference, what I've said and what I'm going to say. But for me, doing this, having my thumb over the neck, allows me more control and more stability, and allows more strength to be put into my bends and my vibratos. So I can have more control over them, making them more expressive, so I can add some flavour into my playing more accessibly, more easily. But there is no wrong or right, it's all down to personal preference. For me, again, I place my thumb behind the neck so I can get more control in my quick, fast playing, and I can get a larger stretch and range of frets I can access. But before I'm adding a little bit of flavour or I'm playing more bluesy kind of things, I will put my thumb over the neck for a little bit more control and more feel in my playing. But now the first common technique mistake is going to be having a large picking motion. And when I say big picking motion, I mean this. Having these really big movements. The reason we want to avoid these large picking motions is because it's unstable, it's uncontrolled, which means we get more sloppy playing, it's not as clean, it doesn't sound as nice, but also we play slower because we're adding unnecessary distance into our picking motion, meaning we take longer to go from picking a downstroke to picking an upstroke because we have a larger distance to cross until we can pick the string again. So if we were to tighten up our picking motion just a little bit, so it looks more like this, we have obviously less distance to cross so we can pick faster, but also we have less room for error because there's less distance, so we can play more controlled and more clean. So ultimately we'll play faster and we'll play cleaner, so best of both worlds. The second mistake I want to talk about is having an over-exaggerated angle in your wrist. And what I mean by this is doing this with our wrist, or this, so we're never really perpendicular. Having an over-exaggerated angle, and it's usually on this angle like this for ages, means that we can't have a full reach, meaning we don't have a big enough stretch if we want to play some things, or we can't stretch as much as we could if we had proper hand placement, and it limits our range of notes that we can use, so it limits our potential in both the stretch, so we can't access the main notes on this way, but also it's a little bit more inconvenient to go on the lower notes as well, the lower strings. So we want to have our fingers more perpendicular to the string so we can get a full stretch, and it's also much easier to access the lower strings and notes. The third mistake is going to be related to the fretting hand again, and it's going to be having bad finger positioning. So we're going to talk about our fretting for a second, and where we want to place our fingers to fret properly or have the nicest sound from our fretting. And usually it's going to be from the middle of the frets to the end of the frets. So the middle to the end, or the right side of the fret you want to fret. So if from here to here sounds good, then if we go down towards the neck, we get that buzzing noise and it's a little bit muted. So we want to stay in the middle to the end. So from here to here. And we also want to use the tip of our finger to fret, so which means we're going to have our fingers curled over the other strings like that. We don't want to have our finger flat to the fretboard, because when we try to fret, we end up muting the string below. So we want our fingers curled over and we want to use the tip of our finger to fret. This makes it a lot easier to play chords and also a lot easier to play cleanly, and you'll play cleaner like this with the curled over fingers. So with the chords, we can do a chord like this, which is a bit of a stretch, but obviously we need the curled over fingers to play that cleanly and sound out properly. So if I flatten my fingers to the fretboard, everything's muted, nothing's sounded out, and we're not actually playing the chord. Because we can't. Because all the strings are covered by our fingers, because they're being muted, because our fingers are flat. So if we curl over our fingers, we can sound out notes properly and play cleaner. It also gives us a much better position, or puts us in a much better position to play legato, so hammer-ons and pull-offs, because it's easier to hammer on when our fingers are curled over. We can put more strength and force into the hammer-on, but also pull-off, because a pull-off isn't just pulling off, even though it works, but to get a good sound, we need to flick off. We just can't do that with our flat fingers, so we need to have our fingers curled over to do legato and sound out notes properly. And the last mistake we'll talk about is having bad hand synchronization. Basically, if you have bad hand synchronization, it means that this hand is playing quicker or slower than this hand, so not synced up properly, so we get a bit of a sloppy, unprofessional sound when we play. So if we want to play fast and clean, we need to have good hand synchronization, because we'll sound good. Our hands will be nice and synced up, we'll sound out notes properly, and that will help us sound very professional, which is what we want. So there's a few ways to get better hand synchronization. One of them is to just slow down when we practice, because if we play sloppy when we practice, we'll play sloppy when we're on stage or we're playing in front of our friends. So if we want to progress in hand synchronization, we need to play slow and really focus on our technique and make sure that we're sounding our notes properly. We can use a clean sound, which makes it abundantly obvious when we miss a note. So if I just hit quicker than I can fret, you can hear it's not quite sounding out properly as it would be. There is a bit of a difference, so it makes it more obvious when we have a clean sound than we have distorted. Because obviously with distortion it's a lot easier to do hammer-ons and pull-offs as well. So using clean sound can make it a lot easier to tell when we're playing out of sync. Just playing guitar will get you good hand synchronization, just because it's something you can progress on subconsciously. You just develop it over time. But also there is exercises you can do, and I'll show you one now. I tend to find that for me, exercises with bursts, short bursts are very effective at helping my hand synchronization. So here is one with some bursts. But that was 4 common mistakes that you should avoid and how to fix them. If you enjoyed this video and found it useful, then give it a like. Subscribe if you're new, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss when I upload, and I will see you in the next one.